Aloha. I want to make a quick video in reference to the correlations between the whole pedogate, the pedophilia rings, and the secrecy behind the government, and the correlations between that and heliocentrism as a whole, and the atmosphere of approach that is either locked into conspiracy so it doesn't get looked into. It's either pushed away in the corner because it's just silly to even think about, or it's just ignored because people are so distracted by social media, their lives, the system as a whole, whatever it is. The point being is that the power of the system has control over the focus and the information as a whole. That's how flat earth gets brushed under the rug the same way. People think it's a joke. People don't even pay attention to it because it's just absurd. How could people do that? How could they lie? That's the whole idea with this stuff. And I don't know if Chester Bennington's so-called suicide yesterday was related to him coming out about the pedophilia information 1 month after, or a few weeks after Chris Cornell's death, and on his birthday. So I can't confirm any of that information, but what I can say is that I know that there are some people in Hollywood who want to say what will threaten their lives. There is still humanity in the people who are making all this money in the system. And those people have a voice. They have influence to where if they were to say anything, it will instantaneously be understood and accepted as the truth because of how real they are. I was just talking about this the other day to somebody just at the bar, and then we were talking about baseball players and basketball, the athletes, how they get paid and how they get millions and millions of dollars. And the guy was saying, yeah, it's crazy how they get paid more than the president. I actually think that athletes should get paid more than the president. And I was saying, yeah, I mean, a lot of the competitiveness, a lot of the love for the game gets taken out when money gets involved. You'd have more people and more competition with, people just wanting to play because they love the game if money wasn't involved. But outside of all that, what I was saying after that conversation was the money actually also shuts people up. Like it's like a mask in a sense. It's like if you start talking about something, you'll get blacklisted. Kind of like Colin Kaepernick, to where what he's talking about, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and nobody will pick him up now because of how he's been blacklisted. So that's what I was saying. I was like, yeah, even if you say anything about politics or whatever it is, or about society, you will be pigeonholed into this corner because of the money that they used to pay you. And all of that influence is affecting society as a whole. So they shut people up with these paychecks. Same thing happens in the music industry. Same thing happens in Hollywood. Same thing happens in politics. All of these people who are caught up in these corporations and then getting out there in front of you talking about, we need to pass this legislation and all this other stuff. Every single thing is backwards. Every single thing that is presented to you on the news is backwards. And you have such a trust, not you necessarily, but a lot of people, you as in the majority of people, have so much trust in the system. It's literally the Stockholm system. We believe that the individuals who made their way to power based upon genociding and massacring the indigenous and the aboriginal people, installing slavery, installing the fiat currency system, installing the maritime admiralty system, installing all of these taxes, installing all of these laws and regulations like the DMV and the laws against criminalizing marijuana, criminalizing psychedelics, and legalizing stuff like alcohol, cigarettes. Everything is backwards. The stuff that gives you cancer is legal by the system. All of these Planned Parenthoods that are in the inner cities, 80% of the Planned Parenthoods being in the inner cities, liquor stores on every corner of the inner cities, malt liquor being filled with all of these chemicals that are designed, or elements that are designed to make you angry and fight and give you cancer, and genetically modified foods and fluoridated water. Everything is approved that is designed to kill you, is approved by the FDA, is approved by the EPA. The system has not changed. The system is not designed to be for the people. They tell you it's supposed to be by and for the people, only because the same way they tell you that you're free and that freedom is everything and that you're the freest nation in the world. How could you be the freest nation in the world when you have the most people locked up in prison, in the prison industrial complex? How can you preach peace while you are the biggest profiteer off of war in the entire world? Everything is backwards, and either people are locked into distraction, or they're locked in to loving the system, or locked into the Stockholm syndrome of not even being able to realize what is going on here, not even being able to let go of that trust factor, trusting your captors. Can't let that go, because this has been going on for generations upon generations. This is a literal mind control that is designed to get into your psyche, separate you from nature, separate you from spirit, and really dumb down your ability to even be yourself, let alone challenge or question the system as it exists. The correlation between this pedophilia in Hollywood and in politics and the heliocentric program running rampant without anybody being able to even question it, in fact it's a joke, is that the connections aren't being made with how deep this is. Like when I bring about flat earth stuff and I talk about how it's more about the human story than it is about the curvature math and all that other stuff, that's to really bring to the surface the system as a whole. When you have realized that your entire universe has been sold to you as a lie in order to maintain power, then the nature, the science of that universe that was sold to you doesn't really matter as much than the people who sold you the lie in the first place. The information that has been sold to you is just one story, but the side effects to that story being sold to you is what really matters when you see that land has been conquered, land has been destroyed, people have been poisoned, entire nations have been broken down. Entire nations have been bombed. People have been programming their children since birth. Vaccines have been stuck into these children since birth. Thinking of how you're supposed to be in life is being programmed into these children since birth because of the trust in the system overall, because you believe in this power. That's more important to me. I believe that there's way more information. That's the 99th percentile of focus and information that is more crucial to share with people, because it hits people right in the heart. It hits people right in the center being of, curvature math might get people to look at the heliocentric model being a lie. But when you share the human story, it really brings to the surface like all of this stuff being a design to keep you from challenging the power grid as a whole, to keep you from questioning the reality, from questioning your trust in the system, because that's really what it boils down to. People can't get over the fact that they can't trust the system. They can't get over the fact that they can't trust. That's one of the big things. Why would they lie? What do you mean, why would they lie? People ask that question is because largely they still believe that the nation and the system, the so-called democratic system, the so-called capitalistic system, they still believe that everything is just on the level. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. You're not coming from the perspective of the Native Americans. You're not coming from the perspective of the indigenous and the aboriginal people, not only in the Americas, but across the earth plane. You've not sat in the space of what has really happened here, the history behind the Columbian era, the history behind the heliocentric system. You haven't sat in those, you haven't placed yourself in that position to see how important this really is. And the reason why I bring this up in relation to the pedophilia rings and all this other stuff is because it's either joked to the side or thrown into this fake news storyline or washed over by the mainstream media, and people believe in the mainstream media because they trust the system overall. They can't let that go. And these Hollywood actors and these musicians and these athletes aren't going to say anything because they have families, because they're scared, whether it's scared of their lives or scared of losing their bank account. Either way, they're scared. The same way that people who are not rich and famous financially are scared by losing friends and losing peers and being vulnerable in a sense that your entire world is going to be flipped upside down when you start questioning the very nature of the system as a whole, when you start questioning the universe, if you start looking into flat earth stuff. This is how the alchemy of these illusionists actually works on the people. They don't actually have to force you to do anything. They just have to convince you to do whatever needs to be done to yourself and the future generations. And that's what's happening right now more easily because people have bought further and further into the idea of society as it's been presented to us today. We believe in the university system. We believe in the politics. We believe in the fiat currency system. We believe that war brings peace. We believe in everything that the politicians say. We believe in all these Hollywood activists. We believe in the movies. We believe in our programming. And that makes up the trust factor in the systems that get projected onto us, into our psyche, and what we send to our kids through the university system. We believe all this stuff, and anything else that comes out in the information stream that challenges those belief systems, just like a religion. The mainstream is a religion, just like scientism is a religion. If you challenge the Jesus of mainstream, if you challenge the Jesus of scientism, what will that do to the people who believe in that religion? They will fight it to the death. They will look at you crazy. They will label you however they need to label you in order to maintain their stability in their religion. And the only way you can break that system is from the inside out. By letting go, first of all, not being distracted so much by the system, getting a sense of quietness, a sense of centeredness, to be able to realize that something needs to change in order to realize that you've been lied to forever. So in reference to the pedophilia stuff that's going on, both Chris Cornell, from what I've heard, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington were both abused within that system. And it's not far-fetched for me to see that either one of them, one or both of them, were going to say something about the program, given that it's all over social media. And being that if it's happened to you, if other people have already said something about it, and you have influence to help it stop, and the only reason why you're not saying anything is because the system is threatening you, that is questioning your humanity. That is questioning, like, are you really famous? Are you really happy? Are you really alive? If you have all this information and know that it's all happening right now, yet you're not saying anything about it. That's the same thing that's going on with all of the other so-called conspiracies and everything else. And I really do believe that there are some people in Hollywood that still have hearts, that still are connected to their soul, and aren't going to sell out completely to the system simply because they have a comfortable bank account and they have a big house, or they're still touring, or whatever it is. They have a whole bunch of fans and all this other stuff. There are some people out there, and they will be taken out. Look at the last video that Chester Bennington was talking about, an interview with TMZ. He had enough. He's had enough with the mainstream media. He was done. He was making a joke out of it, talking about like dragons and magic, and he doesn't have a phone or a computer, doesn't care about all that other stuff. He was done with that system, because from how I see it, he knows what that whole program is. It's all a big magic spell. Same thing goes with like Prince. All the secrecy. They have all of the information of the secrecy of how these people die. Prince dying in an elevator of an apparent overdose of drugs in the elevator. The mentioning of the elevator in the songs that he's made. Him talking about chemtrails and other stuff. Him being on his own for his entire career outside of course, he was in and out of the system, but he was one of those people who is not like Beyonce and Jay-Z, like in the limelight, like on all the time because of whatever. No, he was on his own. And then dying mysteriously. Same thing with like Michael Jackson and all that stuff that they put on him. Like there's people who still have connections with the people around the world. Look at what Michael Jackson was doing when he was traveling all the world. He had his own army. He had a big influence. That's why he wore that military gear. That was his army, was the kids and telling the stories of, look at all the songs that weren't famous by Michael Jackson. If you can get over the whole, like, all the stuff that he was accused of, not even charged with, accused of by the system and that was trying to bring him down. Look at the songs that when he was talking about money, they don't really care about us, human nature, Earth Song, all of these songs and all of this information that is, for lack of a better term, waking people up or letting people, like, triggering people to look deeper into this system. Not to look at the the face of the system, but to look at the system itself. So like flat earth, talking about science and waking people up to the flat earth is like the face of the system. It's good. Like I said, it's not bad to wake people up to that, because they're eventually going to go into the system itself on their own. But if you have the ability to go further, if you know all of this information about the human story, if you know how all of this is connected, then why not also use that information to help people see that it's the very system that is designed to control you? It's a system as a whole that needs to change. And if you're focusing only on the TV show version of, flat earth and the curvature math and the science, and by TV show version, I'm talking about the science, the way that the mainstream is going to manipulate the system, they only want to focus on the science. They will not go into what heliocentrism has added to the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the power grid as a whole. They won't go into that, because that will challenge the power grid inherently. So they will only focus on bringing down NASA, which is easy because they've just been frontmen from the get-go, just been actors. NASA is basically the Hollywood of the university system. And the university system is the university system of mainstream society. So you have all of these various systems that are working within themselves. And you can speak about how they all connect and how it's added up to the control grid that we are living underneath today. My problem is that by only talking about the science of it, you're actually missing out on the 99th percentile of the information as a whole that will bring people to challenge the system altogether. And that's what needs to be done if you're going to make the most of this opportunity of bringing flat earth information to the surface. We're talking about an entire universe that is different. That they've lied to people about the universe to maintain power and control over the masses, to make themselves out to be gods and kings. This is not a joke. This is not some happy little thing that has happened. Once you realize that the Columbian era itself, the core of the genocide and the massacre and the colonization of the entire world, it balances largely on the heliocentric model and people's trust and belief in that system. You see that everybody that has been killed, destroyed, separated from their history in the past and in this moment is still hinging on the university system and people's trust in that system as the evolutionary peak of human society. This is why Neil deGrasse Tyson has to sell evolution and monkey evolution and the idea of indigenous and aboriginal people being primitive and savage, so you can be complacent when those indigenous and the aboriginal people's land and their culture is destroyed and taken over by the mainstream reality. You become complacent when they sell you that. The same way you become complacent when you think that flat earth is only about NASA, the curvature math, and all that other stuff. That's just the face. When you come from the compassionate core of the human story and realizing that the very nature of control and dominance, destruction across the earth plane has been based upon the trust factor, the trust and the distraction factor. You trust in the system and you're distracted from your own empowerment for challenging that system. when you realize that all of these programs work in tandem, that keep people quiet, then you'll realize, how are you working to keep people quiet by not speaking about this information? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the commercial flat earth and all this other stuff that is not being spoken upon. It's not personal. It ain't got nothing to do with any individual. I'm talking about the people that are being bombed right now. The people that are being poisoned right now. The people that are starving right now. The people that are getting fluoridated water right now. All of this stuff is based upon people's trust in the system. That trust in the system makes all the information that you bring to the surface that challenges that system, it makes that absurd to them. That's how you break the Stockholm Syndrome. That's how you break the enslavement program. By catering to the mainstream, you are not breaking the Stockholm program. You're not challenging the slave system. You are amplifying the Stockholm program, and you are amplifying the slave program because you are not challenging and making aware to people that it's not so much about that they've been lied to. Yes, that exists and that matters, but it's about the trust factor in the slave masters. You trust in the capitalistic program. You trust in the democracy. You trust in your politics in Hollywood and university system. Why is my question? Why, when you come from the perspective of the Native Americans, you'll realize that there is no trust to be had in this system. When you come from the perspective of the indigenous and the aboriginal people who have been genocided and had their lands taken, their waters poisoned, and their food genetically modified for centuries, when you come from those perspectives, then you'll realize, why the hell do you have any kind of trust in this system? And why are you waiting for this system to tell you or break anything for you? It's not going to. You have to. The kill shot for this system is the human story. It is not the commercial flat earth story. The kill shot is what has happened as a result of heliocentrism. A slap in the face is what the flat earth going mainstream is. It's a slap in the face. And they'll take that. They'll take that hit. They'll knock out NASA and reboot SpaceX. They'll knock out the university system and reboot some new world order education system. They'll knock out the politics in the United Nations and reboot some new world one government, one world government. They'll knock out Christianity and all these other religions and bring them all together in one new Bible, probably circled around the alien agenda, the Anunnaki story, and all this other stuff. There's many different ways that this program can go. But if we don't challenge the very nature of the slave system, if we keep joking around and this is not a fucking joke. Flat earth is not something that just exists. When you realize that people are being poisoned, when you realize that people are being every day killed right now, people are killing themselves because they either they're trying to say something or they can't say something about this stuff. You are selling this program. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking to. If you're listening to this, this is not a fucking joke. This is not a game. It is not new. NASA exists as the pinnacle of Western civilization. It is the pinnacle. It's the Ben on top of the pyramid. It's that peak. And it's crumbling down. But they only want to destroy the peak of that pyramid of destruction. They don't want to disassemble the pyramid of human destruction. They want to adjust the outside coating. And if you're not talking about the human story, if you're not talking about the alchemy within the system of enslaving yourself, then you are actually adding to the next agenda. That's where I'm coming from. And that's why I have so much passion with this stuff being packaged a particular way and sold to people. The majority, like I said in some previous videos, the majority of flat earth channels are not at all talking about the human story. Everything is focused on NASA. Everything is focused on fake satellites, curvature, and all this other stuff. And I don't want to say it like that stuff doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that you have to grow. If you want to share with people what needs to be shared to challenge the system, then you have to go into the human story. This ain't about, oh, well, some people just talk about this stuff and some people talk about that stuff. You've had 2 fucking years to grow the storyline. If you continue to play that whole, oh, well, I come from this kind of approach without growing, then you are setting up the mentality for other people to be just as complacent as you, for other people to address this storyline from the same shallow ass, still stuck in that Stockholm mentality perspective. You are still stuck in the Stockholm syndrome if you are waiting on the mainstream to tell you what to do with this opportunity of information. You are stuck in that powerless slave mentality. No different than any of these Hollywood actors out there who don't want to say anything because they don't want to lose their bank accounts. They don't want to lose their celebrity following. They don't want to lose any of their friends. They don't want to lose any of that stuff. So they won't talk about the controversial subjects. Well, I hate to say it to you, but flat earth is obviously a controversial subject. And it's not only about the controversial subject of flat earth. It's everything that is within the heliocentric program. Everything. Every agenda, every poison, every story that has been sold to you within the Western so-called civilization, within the Columbian era, all of this is balled into one thing. If you don't go to the heart of the issue of the fact that you have been enslaved, not just talking about all the other stuff, but going into the position of realizing that if the other people who are still suffering around the world because of these lies, because of these mind control programs, if they are still broken, being killed, poisoned, and diseased, then you are not free. You are not. You're not separate from any of this. There is no separation between you and the people who have been genocided and massacred. Where does your storyline fit in the bigger picture? Where do you fit in this whole thing? A lot of the reasons why racism is not being brought up is because people don't want to go into the very nature of the power grid as a whole. People don't want to uproot that system. They don't want to talk about it because you have to look at yourself. And a lot of people don't know what to do with that information. So they just avoid it and act like it doesn't exist. And say, oh, well, that's just, that's just angry people. What the fuck do you mean just angry people? Or racist people? to realize where I'm coming from, realize that the United States of America wouldn't be the United States of America without slavery, without smallpox, disease, the genocide and the massacre of the Native Americans, the indigenous Americans. Australia wouldn't be the Aussies and all that other shit. Look at where all these flags are. That same flag, Patricia, speaking directly to you, the same flag that is sitting on that fucking guitar in the back of your live streams, that same flag represents the blood and the bones of the human civilization outside of Western civilization. That flag sitting on that fucking guitar that you think is just it just represents rock and roll. You are the fucking problem because you are not realizing the depths of this program. You haven't let that shit go. You're trying to hold on to it. Because if you start talking about that, it will remove, just like these celebrities, it will remove a good portion of the celebrityism that you think you have on YouTube. I'm just using this as an example. The colors on the United States flag represent blood, represent genocide, represent slavery. Those colors on the United States flag are a representation of the colors on the United Kingdom and all those other flags. The same flags that are flown in Hawaii, in New Zealand, in Australia, where, mind you, the Tasmanian people were genocided to extinction. An entire race of human beings ran extinct because of this colonial program that you are flying on your wall today and trying to protect subconsciously, mostly, possibly consciously, but subconsciously, definitely, by not being able to speak about this information. You cannot let go of this shit. And by you having a platform and not sharing with people that this is how far we need to go to address the cancer itself, the very nature of your approach, not just you, but everybody else's approach in the so-called flat earth community that is on that face value bullshit. It's on that NASA satellite stuff. And like I said, I like that stuff that exists. It needs to exist out there. I know. But I also said you need to grow. We've had 2 fucking years to grow into the human story. Unless you just want to set up another slave program and protect your investment that has come as a result of the Columbian era and the genocide and the massacre of the indigenous and the aboriginal people who were told that their cosmology, that their understanding, understanding, and overstanding of this realm as a whole is a total fucking lie. It's just bullshit because they're primitive and savage. They were told that story by the same university system and flag that is flying in the back of every fucking live stream that you have, and every story that is not anchored in the perspective of the human civilization. Until we come from those perspectives, we will just be masturbating the Stockholm syndrome into the next agenda. This story will not be addressed unless the people see the story from the inside out. The science of flat earth, the science of the heliocentric model that doesn't exist, that is a lie, that needs to be mentioned. It needs to be understood. Yes. But you don't need 2 fucking years to understand that. That's why it's becoming and has been very fucking suspect for a lot of people when you've had 2 years to change yourself from realizing this system, and nothing has changed. Not one fucking approach. Every video is just one carbon copy of the other ones. It's not going into a deeper overstanding or understanding of this program. It's only talking about the commercial that you've been talking about for the last 2 years from the beginning. Still holding on to those flat earth clues. Still holding on to those however many proofs. Who are the people that made you have to make those fucking clues and proofs in the first place? What do they make their money on? Where did they come? What storylines gave them the power to lie to the entire earth in the first fucking place? Why do people trust that system so much? Why are people being taken out? Because they are bringing information that challenges this system. Why are they being taken out? What are they really talking about? Are they talking about hoping that the system will change? No. They're talking about breaking this shit down. Burning this motherfucker to the ground. You are not speaking about that. You are talking about putting a Band-Aid on the cancer if you are not talking about the human story. So don't give me this soft ass shit about, oh, well, some people approach. You had 2 fucking years to get out of that soft perspective and harden yourself into the human story. How many fucking people have died in the last 2 years as a result of Western so-called civilization? How many fucking people have been poisoned in the last 2 years while you were jerking each other off online for the fucking YouTube flat earth community, talking about, oh, everything is going to be awesome when the mainstream picks up flat earth? Kiss my fucking ass with all that bullshit. We don't have time. We've never had fucking time to sit around and let this shit just be. You have an opportunity to say something, to humble yourself and where you fit in this fucking program. You are flying a United Kingdom flag in Houston, fucking Texas, which is Mexico, which is indigenous land, underneath the United States flag that shouldn't be in the first fucking place. And the only reason why people don't challenge that shit is because they trust this fucking story. They trust Christopher Columbus. They trust your so-called forefathers. They trust Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and all these other assholes out there. You think you're talking about some out there fringe information because you joke about Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson? Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson is like Andrew Jackson and all these other fucking assholes that went around scalping people and genociding the indigenous and aboriginal people. So fuck you if you think that I'm being too hard about what I'm saying. Just fuck you. Pretty much. There is no separation between where I'm coming from and where the indigenous and the aboriginal people were coming from before Christopher Columbus got here. If you haven't anchored yourself in that storyline, if you haven't anchored yourself in what the indigenous and the aboriginal people had to go through, if you are not questioning and challenging the so-called capitalistic system, the economics, and the so-called democracy of this Western society, then you are just as much an enemy as the motherfuckers on the commercials, as the people on the television who are telling you to just keep logging on to social media, keep believing that everything is okay in the public education system. Keep waiting for your slave masters to initiate the change that needs to be made. Keep not talking about the storylines that go to the heart of the human story. Keep talking like that. Keep talking like this is a fucking game while people are being killed right now. Death, each fucking snap, a death because you soft ass pieces of shit won't say a fucking word about the human story. You think this is a fucking game that they've been lying to your ass. Realizing the heliocentric deception is realizing the face of psychological fucking warfare. It's easy to see 9/11 and Vietnam and world wars and all that other shit as a physical warfare, and pumping you up with the Super Bowl and 4th of July and all these other military celebrations to get you pumped up about going to war, commercials and all that other bullshit. It's easy to see that shit. Oh yeah, wow, great. It's easy to understand that. But you have to look into yourself and realize that heliocentrism and going into the flat earth really ain't got one fucking thing to do with NASA, with curvature math and all that, satellites and all that. Those are just the mechanisms that they use to lie to your ass. My point is, why do they have the power to lie to you in the first fucking place? Now that you realized with the science and observations of flat earth that they've been lying to you, ask yourself why. Why is there a psychological warfare? Then you will open up to the door to realize that this is a spiritual warfare to separate your ass from nature, so you can be completely powerless and buy into this commercial, materialistic ass bullshit society that they're selling to people every day. This is not a fucking game. This is not a fucking radio show. This is not a fucking television commercial. This is an opportunity to speak on all of the fucking stories that have been bleeding the people who have died from this system. You have an opportunity to speak on this. And if you are not, you are just as fucking guilty as the motherfuckers pulling the trigger saying it's in the name of peace, saying it's in the name of freedom. Kiss my fucking ass if you think that that's as far as it's gonna go. I'm not the only one speaking from this perspective. Many people are. And if you think that when this shit goes mainstream, the people who are also coming from the same perspective that I'm coming from right now will not tear your fucking ass apart, Because you spent 2 fucking years flying a fucking United Kingdom flag in the back of your live streams and not saying one fucking word about the human story. If you think that they won't rip your ass apart, your soft ass apart, whether you are a controlled opposition or not, it doesn't fucking matter. Whether you're aware of your ignorance or not is not a fucking matter. The point is, you put yourself out there. Any of the motherfuckers out there talking about this is the only thing that matters. Flat Earth going mainstream. It's only about the science. This ain't only about Mark and Patricia. This is about anybody else who is coming from that soft ass perspective, who has been coming from that soft ass perspective for the last 2 fucking years and not talking about why this shit exists. You can talk about every what storyline that exists out there. But if you haven't expanded the story to why this shit exists from a compassionate, centered space of realizing that this is about humanity, this is about nature, I can't even say you're just as bad as the people who are pulling the fucking trigger on all of the people across the world, all the poisons and all. You're actually worse. You are building a bigger gun for the next agenda by softening this shit up for them. That's why I will gladly gift wrap a giant fuck you. Especially if I'm being told that I'm coming at this from a hard perspective. All of my other videos end in peace, love, and harmony. So the people who can really hear me, take those words that I just said right now and know that I'm talking to you from peace, love, and harmony. Know that what I'm saying is from that space with that intention. But I'm going to end this video with a giant fuck you to all those other people who are looking at me with that side eye.